Most writers I know will agree behind closed doors they'd have been an artist or a musician, if only they could draw or weren't tone deaf. My only difference is that I'll happily admit that in public. But whilst I can't sing or play, I love music, and I'm fascinated by the way it's put together, and that can be incredibly helpful in writing. When it comes to pacing, for example, it's very easy for us to dilute the effects of our beautiful descriptive prose, or our powerful staccato chew it up and spit it out dialogue, by not varying our sentences, by putting too many beautiful descriptions side by side, by making the rat-a-tat-tat so relentless it loses effect. The thing is, we know in theory that short muscular dialogue and long languid phrasing works best if it punctuates our prose rather than constituting it. But it's not always easy actually doing that, which is where musical technique helps. Today, I want to look at one of those basic building blocks that piano pupils everywhere will roll their eyes at: arpeggios. Arpeggio is simply what happens when you take a chord, a sound made up of several notes played together, and play those notes separately. Rather like a colour, in fact, where you might break orange into yellow and red, or maths, where you would break a perfect number like 6 down into its factors 3, 2 and 1. You can apply this technique incredibly effectively in sentence building. It's particularly useful when you're struggling to convey the full depth of what you want to say, in particular the full impact of an image or the full emotional impact of an event. This can often be because you haven't sufficiently unpacked your idea and drilled down to the basic elements that give it that power that you want to convey. Say there's a sunset over the Danube. There's so much packed into a sunset it's like a chord. Ask yourself, what are the notes that make it up, the ones it couldn't do without? Then write the sentence that way. So instead of I watched the sunset over the Danube, you can write I stood on the Sechenyi Bridge and watched the red sun and the black water and the geometric shapes of the old city on the hill until each had disappeared. Now, take a complex emotion. We all know how devastating it can be, say, to get bad news, or how joyous to get good news. But we get very little of that joy or devastation across if we say simply, he was incredibly upset, or she was so happy. Here, arpeggio can be a great way of showing, not telling. Try thinking about a time of intense emotion. Try and be there in that moment. You almost certainly weren't thinking, I'm so happy! Instead, there's a whole group of sensations that combine to form that happiness. The light shone more brightly off the walls, the air felt warm like it was wrapping you in feathers, you became intensely aware of the sound of a bird singing, or a train speeding in the distance, you felt each breath as it entered your lungs, fresh with possibility. If you want to convey what you were feeling, you wouldn't need to say happy at all. You'd break it down into those things, and the reader would build it back up in their head. And that's just how arpeggios work. Of course, you wouldn't do that all the time. Remember the thing about varying rhythm. But if there's magic in an image for you, and you're struggling to convey that magic on the page, try breaking the image down, and you'll be amazed how often the magic comes back into focus.